Welcome to Lunch with the Lord. I'm Pastor Mark. We're in Mark chapter 10. We're going to be starting verse 46 this lesson with Jesus healing blind Bartimaeus. But before we begin, Jeremiah 15:16, thy words were found, and I did eat them, and thy word was unto me the joy and the rejoicing of my heart. Now, as we start verse 46, verses 46 to 52 deal with Jesus healing blind Bartimaeus. And let's read verse 46. It says, and they come to Jericho, and as they went out of Jericho with his disciples and a great number of people, blind Bartimaeus, the son of Timaeus, sat by the highway side begging. Now, Jesus and the disciples now finally arrive at Jericho. If you remember, they were with the rich young ruler on the east side of the Jordan River, and then they crossed the Jordan River in the area of Judea, and they start making their way towards Jerusalem. And I've said in the last few lessons that eventually Jesus will end up at Jericho. He will arrive there, and then he will go on to Jerusalem. Well, now he's coming into Jericho. Jericho is approximately 5 miles from the Jordan River, and it's approximately 15 miles from Jerusalem. Now, the Jericho of Joshua's day is not the same Jericho of this here in Jesus's day. The Jericho of Joshua's day was approximately 1 mile north of where this Jericho takes place. Now, it says here that in verse 46, when they came to Jericho, as Jesus and his disciples came up, and it says what? And a great number of people. So it wasn't just Jesus and the disciples, but there was also a great many people that followed him, probably from the east side of the Jordan River, and crossed with him, and now they're working their way over to eventually to Jerusalem. But there was a lot of people with Jesus. Now, the Gospels of Matthew and Mark state that this miracle of healing Bartimaeus took place when Jesus was leaving Jericho. But the Gospel of Luke in chapter 18 and verse 35 states that this healing took place as Jesus was entering Jericho. Now, I studied a little bit, and there's a multitude of different explanations that commentators give as to why Matthew and Mark say Jesus was leaving Jericho. Why does Luke say he's entering Jericho? And I'm not going to give you any of those explanations, but if you want to, you can go and you can study for yourself and come to your own conclusions as to why Matthew and Mark, state one thing and Luke states another thing. It's, seems to be confusing, but it's not. I'm sure in the end, when we get to heaven, we'll understand what actually happened. But my guess is that it more than likely it happened the way Matthew and Mark said, that Jesus was leaving Jericho, and he was leaving Jericho on his way to Jerusalem. And as he was leaving, this is what happens, what we're about to study here. Blind Bartimaeus lived in a city that was under a curse. In Joshua chapter 6 and verse 26, right? When God gave the children of Israel the victory over Jericho, and then when it was all said and done, Joshua pronounces a curse on the city of Jericho. And he says, let you never be rebuilt, right? Well, it never was rebuilt. The Jericho of Jesus's day was in a different location. So the old Jericho was never rebuilt. So, but the city was under a curse. Joshua cursed the city. And there are many people who are blind, and they dwell in cursed places of this world. This whole earth is cursed. It's cursed because of sin. This whole existence, the heavens, it's all infected with sin. Sin has brought a curse from God upon it. And this is why God is going to take this present heaven and earth, and he's going to set it on fire. He's going to break it all down, and he's going to cleanse it and purge it, and then he's going to rebuild a new heaven and a new earth. He's going to rebuild. He's going to make a new heaven and a new earth, but he needs to cleanse this heavens and this earth first. And this is what's going to happen. It's spoken in 2 Peter chapter 3 in the Greek words there, that God's going to break it down and purge and cleanse it and then rebuild it. So verse 47 says, and when he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to cry out and to say, Jesus, thou son of David, have mercy on me. All right, have mercy on me. Now, he says to Jesus, thou son of David, and he recognized that Jesus was the Messiah. Blind Bartimaeus was calling him the son of David, which means that blind Bartimaeus believed in his heart that Jesus was the Messiah that was to come. And as the Messiah, one of the ministries of the Messiah was to bring sight to the blind. As we see in Isaiah chapter 35, Isaiah 35, let's start at verse 4. And it says here, say to them that are of a fearful heart, be strong, fear not. Behold, your God will come with vengeance, even God with a recompense. He will come and he will save you. Verse 5 says, then the eyes of the blind shall be opened, and the ears of the deaf shall be stopped. And this is what Jesus did. Jesus healed those that were blind. And it was a sign that Jesus is this Messiah who was to come, that the Old Testament spoke of. He says here in verse 47, he says, Jesus, thou son of David, have mercy on me. The great need of blind people in a cursed world is not healing, but it's mercy. What would it profit a man if he was to be healed, but then only to spend eternity in the lake of fire? Mercy is the great need of the spiritually blind. It's not happiness. It's not peace. It's not sympathy. It's not anything else from this world. What spiritually blind people need is mercy from God. Blind people do not have the ability to see themselves or to see other people. They can feel the heat of the sun, but they cannot enjoy the light of the sun and what it shows to the eyes. Those who are spiritually blinded by this cursed world can neither see themselves and their deformity, nor can they see the Lord either. right? So people that are spiritually blind, they're blind to their own, how can I say, they're blind to their own condition. They can't see themselves for what they are. They don't, I mean, they in a sense, they don't know their sin. Some of them do, and some don't care. But or maybe they don't feel themselves worthy to come to the Lord. But spiritually blinded people they live in this cursed world. Listen, you and I were the same way. Before we got saved, we were spiritually blind. We lived in this cursed world, and we didn't see the Lord. And then verse 48 says, and many charged him that he should hold his peace. And he cried the more a great deal, thou son of David, have mercy on me. Don't let the continued voices around you keep you from crying out to the Lord for your petition. Listen, I give blind Bartimaeus credit. He's crying out, Jesus, thou son of David, have mercy on me, right? And what does the crowd around him do? Quiet. The master doesn't have time for you, right? He's too important. And he's on his way to Jerusalem. He hasn't got time. But I give blind Bartimaeus credit. He shouted even the louder. He wasn't going to let Jesus leave without getting mercy. There will always be not only words of discouragement, but also thoughts of discouragement. The more the discouragement comes, then the more you should cry out to God for mercy. Don't think that your request is unworthy of taking it to the Lord. Listen, blind Bartimaeus, more than likely he was, I'm imagining in my mind, blind Bartimaeus, he's probably, dressed okay. I don't want to say in rags or anything, but he had to beg so he was poor. And unless he lived with someone, we don't know, Bible doesn't say that he lived with anyone. Maybe he lived with relatives, brothers or sisters, or mother, father. I don't know how old he is. I'm imagining in my mind he's probably 20, 30, maybe 40 years old. And who knows, how he lives or where he lives. Maybe he has a brother or sister he stays with, but nothing's ever mentioned about him. So we don't know how he looked. But it would be, blind Bartimaeus can't see his condition. But he cries out to the Lord. And, don't think that your request is unworthy to take to the Lord. It would have been easy for blind Bartimaeus to say, oh, that Jesus, that son of David, oh yeah, he's such an important guy. And I'm just this blind beggar here. And I'm probably, dressed not well. He doesn't want to bother with me. I mean, I'm just asking for mercy, and I want to receive my sight, right? He's got more important things to do, right? No. The Lord is intricately interested in every detail of our life. As I said many lessons ago, there's nothing. Listen, when we were created by God never created us with the ability to be able to hide anything from him. And I believe that also goes for the angels, even the fallen angels, including Lucifer, including Satan himself. When God created the angels and when he created mankind, he created us so that it was not absolutely not possible that we could hide anything from God. Even our thoughts are known to him for our whole span of our life. The whole span of our life, God sees our thoughts until the day we die. He knows them afar off. And so here, don't think that your simple request isn't worth bringing to the Lord. He sees everything. He's interested in every detail of your life. And he sees your whole being. So don't listen to the words of discouragement. Don't let the discouragement come into your thoughts and say, he hasn't got time for me. Who am I? I'm just this poor, unsaved, spiritually blind person living in this cursed world. Verse 49, and Jesus stood still and commanded him to be called. And they called the blind man, saying unto him, be of good comfort, rise, he calls for thee. It says here, the Bible says that Jesus stood still, right? Jesus stood still because blind Bartimaeus, he was blind, and it would be difficult enough for him to come to Jesus. And Jesus also stood still because healing blind Bartimaeus was God's next will for Jesus to do. And Jesus would not take another step until Bartimaeus was healed. So when it says Jesus stood still, he was standing still for the sake of blind Bartimaeus. Now, we don't know if people helped Bartimaeus to come to Jesus or not. Helped him, took him by the hand and led him. Or if blind Bartimaeus had to feel his way to get to Jesus. But we do know that Jesus stood still. Out of courtesy, he stood still for blind Bartimaeus. Why? Because it was God's will for Jesus to heal blind Bartimaeus. And then he says, be of good cheer. He calls you, right? One verse before, here the people are saying, be quiet. Shut up, blind Bartimaeus. The master doesn't have time for you. He's too busy. He's too important, right? And now what do they say? Oh, blind Bartimaeus, be of good cheer. Oh, the master's calling you, right? The Lord is calling you. Well, the Lord calls all that are blind in this world, and he calls them all to his side, right? When Jesus called him, I'm not so sure that blind Bartimaeus heard Jesus call him, but I believe that Jesus told the people around him to go get him. Tell blind Bartimaeus, right? The master's calling, because it was the people. What does it say here in verse 49? It says, and they call the blind man, saying, be of good cheer, be of good comfort, arise, he calls it. It says, and they told Bartimaeus. It doesn't say Jesus told him, they told him. So here we have the messengers tell Bartimaeus to come to Jesus. And that's what we do. As Christians, we are the messengers of the Lord. And we go to the spiritually blind in this world and say, the Lord's calling you. The Lord is calling you, right? And sometimes that call, that message comes through a person. Sometimes it comes through listening on the radio. Sometimes it comes through maybe getting a get well card, God bless you, get well card. Sometimes it comes through a witness at work, right? Or whatever. But in some way, the Lord uses something or someone to call that person to himself. And so the blind man is called, and the people go and they and they tell Bartimaeus, the master's calling you. And that's what our duty. Well, we have a ministry. It says in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 19, we have the ministry of reconciliation. To wit, that God, listen, to wit, that God was in Christ, reconciling the world unto himself, not imputing their trespasses unto them, and hath what? And hath committed unto us, the believers, the ministry of reconciliation. Each one of us has a ministry of reconciliation to go out and to tell the world that they can be reconciled to God. We've been reconciled, but the rest of the blind people in this cursed world aren't reconciled. But we can tell them. We can tell them. The master, right? The master's calling you. Reconciliation is available for you to your Father who created you and made you. So we have a ministry of reconciliation, right? So First, it was blind Bartimaeus calling for the Lord. Now, it's the Lord calling for him. And as the message came through those who heard the Lord, so Jesus' message today comes through those who know and hear his voice. The message of reconciliation comes through us. Comes to us to speak to those, right? To speak to people, to minister, to make a phone call, to somehow witness to someone. That God moves upon our heart to witness to these people and to give them this word of reconciliation. We're going to continue on in verse 50 next lesson. But until then, walk with the Lord. I know he walks with you.